everybody. Welcome to Resilient Brown Mamas podcast. We are on episode 23. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And you know what this smile means? It means that we're doing an interview. You know, that's my favorite thing to do. In honor of Women's History Month, which is our favorite month, we have Miss Twyla here who is going to share her beauty and greatness with us. I'm sure Sheena is going to give us all the details on this wonderful lady before she shares her interview with us. So,
a long list.
Yes.
It's a long list of accolades and bossness and greatness. First off, it's one. Okay, hold on. Because I'm excited, y'all. So, I start tripping over myself when I get excited. Because I've been wanting to interview her for a very long time. I wanted to be able to introduce the circle and the community to her because
she was in that original list before we even started.
Right? Because you have your friends and the people that you know, and you'd be like, oh yeah, my friend, she a nurse. Oh yeah, my friend is a teacher at, the best high school in the county. Oh yeah, my girlfriend is the head of HR, all of those accolades. But I bet none of y'all could say that your friend or your sister friend or somebody that is a whole scientist out in these streets. I know you don't. Because before meeting her, I know I didn't. And so I always love to brag about her because she is probably one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met. But not only that, she's a woman of a good heart. I'm always constantly learning from her. And I'm just proud to say that she's like my other mother, because I got several. But I just embraced her. Like, you're going to be my mama, whether you like it or not. But I cannot wait for you to hear her story. This is the incomparable Twyla Stubblefield. Welcome to Resilient Brown Mamas.
We need one of those buttons. We need an applause button.
Oh, what you say? You need an applause button?
Yes.
Thank you so much. That, like, if I was white, I'd be blushing right now, but I'm not.
We need one of those buttons, when you I don't know if y'all remember, y'all used to go to like Jamaican parties and they'd be like, So, Ma, I want you to just give us a quick introduction into who you are. Because I know I gave away a lot in your introduction, but just introduce the community to you.
Okay. So my name is Twyla Stubblefield, and I am, I guess I'll start off by saying I'm a mom. And what else? An aunt, a scientist, and a serial entrepreneur.
I love that.
One day I'm gonna make it. I'm working on it.
Go make it, Ma. You already made it. At this point. So I know the ladies are probably just as curious as I am. How did you even get into the sciences? Like, I don't think we've ever talked about how that journey began for you. How did you even get into that?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I'm a baby boomer. So, when you're a baby boomer, your parents, it was four things. You was going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief, right? We ain't having a whole lot of selections. But for me, according to my parents, I was always curious and I always liked science and I'd play with bugs and stuff like that. So again, they guided us to where we should go. We didn't have the option like, today's kids have a zillion options. And probably even back then, if they did, they still would have, because, we had Black parents. They were like, no, honey, you got to do this. So I was going to do biology because of the bugs. My first choice was to be an oceanographer because I love Jacques Cousteau. He was the bomb to me. And I was like, oh, I could do that. Then I moved from Jacques Cousteau to biology, but then somebody told me that I can make more money doing chemistry. So I ended up doing chemistry. I went and I got my undergraduate in chemistry and then my Master of Sciences in polymer chemistry. So from there, Oh, and I grew up in the deep South, Louisiana to be exact, northern Louisiana. So I finished all my schooling because as a boomer, you went to school, you got good grades, um, you went to college, then you got a good job, then you got the husband and the babies in that order.
In that order.
And I was told that since, now I'm gonna get Southern, since knee high to a duck, that it was supposed to happen in that order. And you know, when they tell you stuff, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. So after I went to school in New Orleans, Dillard University, left there because I wasn't really to become an adult, like they call it, adulting. I was like, okay, I need to go back to school. And so I left there and went to Georgia, went to Atlanta University, and then got my master's in polymer chemistry. Then after the schooling was over and it was time for me to go to the real world, I actually got my first job at Kraft Foods. I always tell people that people look at me like, huh, the macaroni and cheese people. And I stayed there for 30 years.
Wow.
Which in today's world, even when I was about to retire, I was like, I'm a dinosaur. I stayed at one company for 30 years.
Wow.
So that's how it started.
What was your favorite? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
What was your favorite part about working there? I know we just stay at jobs because that's what we're supposed to do. Because it seems like you were that person who stayed on the straight and narrow. But I'm sure along the way you realized that you did have choices. What was it that kept you there, or did you?
Oh wait, well, I'm sure we'll get to that conversation later. It was a long time before I figured I had choices.
But I was about to say that's what I just said. I don't know if you did though.
Wow.
Well, the cool thing about Kraft was the company was so large that the whole 30 years, I could go into so many different departments or divisions. It felt like I was in a different area because it was so big. So when I first started out, I was in basic research where we looked at and studied starch, which is in bread. Starch is the composition of starch is a polymer. And I had gotten my degree in polymer chemistry. Then I moved from there to more of an application role out of the basic science department. And I worked for Maxwell House Coffee. And when I moved there, I may have been the only Black male nor female. I was the only female, no males, but just female. It was a good old boys network. And our plant was in Hoboken. One of them was in Hoboken, and another one's in Jacksonville, Florida. But I was able to hang. And it was okay. You know, I guess my Southern roots also taught me, you know, when they're going to be with you and when they're not going to be with you. And either way, I knew how to roll because that's just how I was raised. So then I moved from coffee into like a technical applications route where we worked on cheese filled products, like dough products. So we created the doughs, we put the fillings in them. Also in that group, I became I invented a shelf stable cream cheese that was patented.
You said you invented?
Yeah, I invented a shelf stable.
Rewind that back. One more time, because it's a light flex, but it's not a light flex.
What? I invented
a shelf stable cream cheese.
Yes.
And then I don't know if it was in that group or I also worked with, still in the coffee arena, you know, they still make them. General Foods International coffees in the little red, they used to be real aluminum cans.
Yeah. I used to drink that every morning.
And you scoop it, however.
You scoop it out.
And it had the cream already in it. It was so creamy and good because I used to drink it with her. I know I'm not supposed to, but you know, back in the day, drank coffee.
Wait, and it had about this much coffee and rest of it was sugar. So
that's so cool.
That product I worked on, when you make it, it was a big deal about how much foam, at least for us, it was how much foam ended up on top.
Yes.
So we had some Japanese counterparts that had figured out a way to make their bubbles nice and tight. So I ended up having to go to Japan to work with their technology to see if we can make our bubbles smaller, because it would give the illusion that you had more foam on top when you got ready to drink the coffee.
Genius.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Genius.
All I'm saying is, if you ain't got no scientists, I don't care what kind of scientists in your network, you're not doing it big. Because from now on, I am going to buy the international, what's it? The Maxwell I can't even think of what it's called.
I know it's in the little.
It used to be, I think it's still a General Foods. I think they still use the name
I'm
General
going
Foods
to post
International
the
Coffee.
picture. And I want everybody out there to go get them a can. You can pick your flavor. We don't care. But when you drink and when you sip it with your pinky up, I want you to be like, Twyla Stubblefield had that.
French vanilla is the best, hands down.
The French vanilla was
French
the
vanilla
best.
was good. It was good.
It was.
And the mocha flavor was good as well.
Mocha, yes.
So Sonia, I know that you had, I know you had a question. I didn't want to skip over you.
I mean, what I was going to say was along the same lines as what Mika touched on, right? You are the example of exactly what you hear people talk from stage, or even now social media. We don't want to be that person that, we're taught to go to school and get good grades and go to college and work somewhere for 30, and then you die. Like, there's such negative, indication of that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's just conveyed as such a negative thing, right? But again, people have to remember what generation you were in. And
right.
Also people have to remember and pay attention to what you do with that.
Yes. Yes.
And you are a perfect example of, you can do great things with that. Yeah, we know we live in a different world and a different generation, and that is not, the only thing to do. But it's a different generation, it's a different world. So,
and if
like
not that,
yeah,
I mean, as an individual, everybody has to know different components. Like everything she said was team. It's just like us, like we're a team, we all bring something different. So it totally debunks this whole idea that, everybody wants to be a chief, but nobody wants to be an Indian. But there can be a whole lot of chiefs. Like you were one working, because one person cannot possibly come up with these things, and we just consume these things and we don't think about the bubbles and the shelf life, and we just buy it and take it for granted. But this is something that is a process, and it takes very intelligent people who have to work in teams. And it makes me think about the African proverb, and I don't remember the region, but it's, what is it, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. So I think that this is an amazing example. Just in my mind, I was just looking at the pieces, and it just made me like so excited. I'm like, can I go to the factory? I know you're retired, but can you get me in there?
She said the foam, and the only thing I could think of on the foam is like, oh, it's there or it's not there. Like, who thinks about
the feeling that you get, right? And the aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And it also in all of the products, it was about the composition of the ingredients in the formula that then dictate what you tasted when you made it. So when I had that great opportunity to go to Japan to do the foaming with the General Foods International Coffees, I actually also got a patent from that work. And when I did the cream cheese deal, I also got a patent from the work from that too. So when your original question was about me being a dinosaur and staying there for 30 years, but it didn't feel like 30 because I worked on all these different brands.
Yeah.
Also worked on the Kool-Aid line, the Kool-Aid, our Kool-Aid where we put a ton of sugar in it. I worked on
Don't make me
Kuwait,
sing the
Crystal
jingle because
Light.
I will. I will. Sorry.
I worked on Kool-Aid, Crystal Light, and then the Country Time brands, the no bake cheesecakes, that line.
Country Time, stop it.
Yes, and the mac and cheese products as well. We had a year, and we had several years we worked on the yellow powder that coats the pasta.
Yeah.
To get that formula, I was part of the team, but it took years to get that because I forgot the whole story because it's been a while. But again, y'all just go off, take it off the shelf and make it, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes years to get what you just grab off the shelf.
Yeah.
Mom,
we grew up with Country Time in my house. You said Country Time, I felt like I was 6 years old again.
every product that she named,
Mm-hmm.
this going back to our food episode, I have an attachment to. My grandmother used to keep the Maxwell International in the house. It was like her special coffee, and I would always go and sneak it, right? Make it with milk or whatever because I couldn't use the stove. The Crystal Light, she drank Crystal. My grandmother, one of my grandmothers drank Crystal Light like it was going out of style, and I hate it because she drank it. That was all she offered us, and she didn't make it with no sugar, no nothing. But I guess that was the point. It wasn't supposed to have sugar. Who didn't eat mac and cheese? Who didn't eat Kraft mac and cheese? And if your mother went to go pick up a box that was anything other than Kraft mac and cheese, you was mad because you didn't want the no frills. So to know that you have had a hand and touched each of these products that kind of coat our childhood in some way, and still like for our children, you know, that I'm blessed. I'm blessed to even say that I know you. So that's another hard flex, but I can't even, and I guess for you, you might just think like, oh, this is my job. This is what I do. Like, do you even like, is it a big deal to you? Or is it just, I did it?
You know what? Not until she tells me all the time, I'm like, okay. I'm like, it was just, that was my job and that's what I did. And that was it. But I also have noticed that when I do achieve stuff, I'll be like, okay, on to the next. But I'm learning.
Yeah.
I think when my daughter was graduating from college was the first time I learned how to take an exhale and take a deep breath. Because otherwise I was just like moving. Yeah, okay, that's done. So let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
First off, shout out to my boo Alyssa, because she be listening every week. Hey, boo.
Love you.
No, I mean, I know for me, you and I always have these candid talks, but I'm really curious for you to share with the community and the ladies, like, so you did amazing things and accomplished so much at work. How were you able to do that and hold down a whole household? Like, because I'm struggling. I'm telling you now, I'm currently in it and I'm struggling. So I can't even imagine doing the work that you were doing on such a high level and still trying to maintain an entire family.
Well, that goes back to my mother and my grandmother and my aunts too. They made this stuff look like it was real easy, right? I never forget when mom would come visit us in New York and we do the whole church thing and I get the kids up and we had to drive half hour to church, get out of church at 1:00 because we was Southern Baptist. So one time she came, I said to her, I was like, hold on. Oh, hold this point. When I was a kid, my mother would make desserts from scratch and dinner before we went to church every Sunday. So when she came to visit me, I said, hold on, Mom. This ain't gonna happen. Nothing like what you used to do, because I don't know how I did not know how. Oh, and we'd have breakfast before we went to church. I still to this day don't know how she did it. But so she would look at me and she's like, okay. I'm like, I know it's gonna be okay because that's all I could do.
Yeah.
But honestly, when Herman was Alyssa was maybe 2 or 3 and Herman was a baby, my husband's aunt came to stay with us. So when they were little, she stayed in the house so I didn't have to schlepp them in and out. And then, poor thing, she ended up passing away, and they were both ready to. Alyssa was in school, and Herman was on his way. So I would leave Terrytown, fly like a bat out of hell across the bridge, go and pick them both up because they were both on either side of Spring Valley. So hopefully Tampaxi Bridge wasn't crazy. Go pick up one, then pick up the other, and then we make it home. But it was a juggle. But my predecessors, meaning my mom, my aunts, and my grandmothers, they like, I just gave y'all the example. Like, you're supposed to do all of that. You're supposed to clean the house, and we had a big house. You're supposed to cook dinner every night. And silly me, I did. I'd be stupid by the end of the night, but I'd do it. And I remember one Sunday talking about when to start wearing off. One Sunday, I noticed the pattern. My awareness became up to me. It was like, how come I get up at 6 o'clock, get them ready, feed them breakfast, go half hour way over to church, come back home. I can remember many days I walk in the house with my church clothes on, run to the stove to make this 5-course meal. And then I looked, I was like, wait, the husband over there asleep or watching the football game, the kids wherever, and I'm in the kitchen slaving. So I was like, something wrong with this picture. So I slowly began to pull back, and I wouldn't do the roast beef or the baked chicken and the mashed potatoes and the vegetables. In my house we had to have 2 vegetables every meal. So it got to the point I was like, spaghetti will work. That'd be meat sauce. Meat sauce and some meat, and maybe I'll get a salad. So eventually, years later, I got a little sense in my head. But I also remember before Aunt Lena came to stay with us, I would travel. Sometimes I'd take a 6 a.m. flight out of Westchester to go to Chicago, do an all-day meeting. And this taught me a lesson. I would cook food so that the husband and the children could have food already in the refrigerator, and then all they had to do was prepare it. I come home one time, and them people, be nice, hadn't touched the food. I was like, oh,
I knew you were
note to self. Note to self. Let that go too.
I knew you were going to say that. I
Me
knew
too.
you were going to say that, because I'm like, I'm gonna reach through this. If she say that, I'm gonna reach through this computer and go find them people.
And a lot of women have realized that they are married single mothers.
Yeah.
It's such it's sad because a lot of women want to say that they're married, but a lot of times they're in it alone, and the man thinks that just working is enough, and sometimes they don't even do that. I've heard, they're not even just their presence. They think that they're leading. Where are you leading us to, Dad?
Yes, ma'am.
Sheena and I just had this conversation yesterday because I was sharing with her, someone else's story, and and we were talking about this impression that people on the outside see because there's a family unit, right? But what they don't know is that, and we are talking what we're talking, so I'm going to say the husband is absent. Like, you're running the streets, you're doing whatever you're doing, and I'm raising these kids, but yet you're my husband and we're a family unit, so people think that you're participating, and you're not participating.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said. I am
No.
married. I'm a single parent.
Yes. I it's so funny that you said you woke up one day, because Alyssa would always say to me, starting back a few years ago, girl, I don't know why you be cooking these kids hot meals every night. They can eat a bowl of cereal. They can eat a cheese sandwich. You crazy. You be cooking every night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, feeling like it was my duty. Again,
Yes.
going back to what you said, Mom, my parents made us a hot meal every night. They came home from work at
Mm-hmm.
4 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and by 4:05, my mom or my dad was starting dinner. I ate a hot meal, so I felt like I needed to give. That was the thing to do. That's what I saw.
Yes.
And now they're lucky if I cook maybe twice a week.
Now, Mom would tell me when I first started out, what same thing happened to her because she couldn't cook when she first got married. She's like, well, if you do not one meat, but two meat on Sundays. Now, logically, it made sense. That way, and then you can always add veggies because they cook quicker. That would take you to almost the end of the week. So I did follow that logic, and I do follow that logic now, even though I'm by myself, because it allows me not to be in the kitchen as much.
Yeah.
But it still works. It still works. Mm-hmm. You know what I wanted to ask about, because we always talking about food, and everybody knows I have food phobias. I'm like afraid of everything now because there's a listeria outbreaks and there's, hepatitis and all this stuff. But the one thing that has been grinding my gears is the bioengineered food. So as a scientist, has the food always been bioengineered food, especially because everything you name is pretty much instant? What makes it bioengineered? What makes it different than when you were making?
Well, if you look at our whole food system and the amount of people that the various industries have to feed, they have to come up with a shorter, quicker way to mass produce food for the population. And then also by doing that, the pretty word we used to use is called productivity. So you take out. So let's say a formula ended up having 100%, 80%, no, say 60% cocoa powder in it, and then the various other ingredients. But cocoa cost you $4 a pound, where a flavor, because you don't have to put a minute amount, a flavor may only cost 25 cents to give you that similar taste. So that's one of the games that they play. And then when it comes to fruits and vegetables, agricultural scientists work on genes that can then be treated and or manipulated so that from a disease resistance standpoint, that maybe 50 years ago corn may last, let's say, 3-4 weeks, but with the population distribution and the corn coming from Idaho, but it's got to come to Louisiana, by the time it gets to Louisiana, half of it's bad. So then they go to the scientists and say, hey, is there some way that you can make this gene stronger so that it will then hold when it comes to distribution? And we want to take that 3 weeks and make it 6 weeks. So then they can modify all that stuff in the lab, and that's what it's called. That's how the modifications happen, based on the need in the industry, as well as, of course, there's money somewhere associated with it. But what ends up the end user as ourselves, we end up getting the short end of the stick because of the various things that they do, as well as not the same product that we knew, for example, when we were kids.
Yeah. Wow.
It's still edible, caloric wise, but then you have to ask yourself, which trade-off do you want? Do you want to eat more dense food and figure out how to grow things on your own, and or find farmers markets, and there's these other subsidiaries where they grow fresh food and you buy your stuff from them? Same thing with your animal products. You find a local dairy, or you find a local place that sells meat, if you're into meat, and you go buy it from them, and that way you know exactly where that all those products are coming from and how they've been treated.
That's fair enough.
Love it. So
I just hate seeing that on the side of the box. I'm like, oh, but it's on everything now.
yeah.
Yep.
Everything.
Twyla, I had a question that popped in my head. Can you tell us a time where like you experienced that work, something that you didn't agree with, right? Whatever ingredients were going into something, or they were leaving out something that you felt it should have had. How was that handled? Like, were they open to hearing what you were contributing, or it was like, no, we don't want to hear it. We're going to do it this way, because we know we're talking corporate anyway.
Oh, well, typically when we developed a product.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, if you knew of a better way to do something or make something, but yet, the execs or whoever was in charge did not agree with it. Like, did you ever come across that experience, and how was it handled? No.
Very, very rarely. In our structure was me as a scientist, and I had a boss, and then he had a boss, and then there was another boss. That way. But we worked as teams, so you had marketing, you had sales, you had logistics. All them other people, it wasn't their business to know what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Our deliverables were to deliver kiwi strawberry Kool-Aid. And then we'd let them taste it. But in terms of what our formulas were to deliver that product, they didn't have anything to do with it. And typically our bosses they'd leave it into our hands, because a lot of times, unless it was something brand new. So there was probably a senior scientist over me, where we would talk about, for example, like which was big at one time, sucralose. When sucralose first came in, that was a big deal, because we were able to take regular sugar out of the product and then replace it with sucralose. For sucralose, potency was probably 50 times sweeter than sugar. So we worked amongst ourselves and the senior scientists that also worked with me to figure out how we would deliver the combination of those sweeteners to give the original all 100% sweetened product, so that they would match as closely as possible from a flavor standpoint.
Yeah.
And then we demonstrated to marketing, logistics, and all those people. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I like this. And they know what they're talking about. Or be like, oh, it needs a little bit more strawberry flavor. And we're like, okay, fine. Or they may want us to switch out and put in more of a candy strawberry flavor, because there are zillions of different types of flavors. So they may give us suggestions that way, but not necessarily say no.
I like that for you, because
so cool.
I know, given the industry that you're in, I don't believe that there are many brown people in that industry of any kind, right? So I'm just leaving it across the board, brown. And to know that you pretty much had a decent experience in an industry where we're not known to be in, but yet you were able to find a high level of success.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that for you. I love that for you.
And I think that the other thing was, when I moved from Louisiana to the north, I had told myself, okay, you're young and stupid, and I was in my 20s, like, okay, I'll try this, and if it doesn't work, I'll just pack up and leave. And that was my first time ever going to the East Coast, mind y'all. Wow. I went with 2 pieces of luggage, and I flew up there. My parents had gone with me to see it when I did my interview, but when I moved, I just had 2 pieces of luggage, and I ain't know a soul. So I forgot my train of thought. Can't remember. Anyway, to the point of when I moved, I told myself, I'll try it out, and if I don't like it, I'd just pack up and go someplace else.
Yeah.
But that was 30 years later. No, after, I always say after a dog, no, after a husband, 2 kids, a dog, and a cat. That's what kept me there.
Well, you're talking about how like you basically grew as a person from this like people figuring out your life for you and telling you what you had to do to making your own choices. And I heard you mention that you're by yourself now. So that means that you changed your life in that way. What if you had it to do over? Would you have done something else? Like, did you have your own personal dreams that your family didn't know about? Like, I want to be a singer or something like that.
Oh yeah, I wish I did. No, if I had, you know how they say that I'm finally settling with, all that has happened was for a reason. And I didn't have, besides being Jacques Cousteau in the middle of the ocean, I really didn't have, I wasn't no real grand singer or nothing like that. No. Probably not. And it also has to do with, again, the time of in history that I came up in.
Right.
And that I was offered an early retirement package. And when I took the early retirement package, I looked around at my life and I was like, this was my first real awareness too. I looked around my life, I was like, I don't know if I like that. I don't really like that. And I was like, okay, you need to do something. So then I pondered for several years on what that looked like. And one of them was around the husband. So I was like, I'm getting ready to start off. I don't use the word start over, but continue on with my life. And perhaps this is the best time now for me to do my own thing. And so I got divorced and then stayed in New York for a little while and then moved back home to Louisiana.
Wow.
That's called the next chapter. Not even.
Yes, the next chapter. Yes.
Next chapter.
Yes. Yes. And like I say, God does stuff the way He wants it to happen. I look at my life now and I look at my life then, and trust me, that life was fine. I had my 2 children. But if I compare my life then and compare my life now, I would never have imagined it the way it is now.
I have goosebumps.
I love that. I love
So
that.
beautiful.
Totally different. And it gave me a sense of freedom that I didn't know even existed. And of course, times and history and all that stuff has evolved. But I do remember one story, and I know when I was going to chat with you guys today, I remember my mom, when she knew me and my husband weren't getting along, and she said to me, well, way back when, women used to stay with their husbands because they really couldn't do anything on their own. Yeah. And my mom was the first person that said to me, but there's a lady here. She got tired of her husband. She planned the whole thing out. He came home one day and all his stuff was gone. I was like, Ma. So she was hinting heavy to me that it wasn't like it was when she got married to my dad, no, my grandparents. And that women, she said, I remember her saying, women have their own money now, so they can do what they want to. I was like, okay. But it still was frightening because I was hung up on the big house, what people gonna say, that whole 9 yards. And I eventually bit the bullet, found the courage, and I did it. But then in hindsight, I did, and then I started on this whole personal development journey. And one of my good friends, I had gone to an all Black females retreat, encouraged me, because I wasn't going to do it, to write my story. And in my story, I talk about what I'm sharing with you guys was, you do this, 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 and this, and you get the white picket fence, and one of you guys mentioned it earlier. And then you walk out, especially my mom and my grandmother's era, you walk out clean to the T, like everything is just wonderful. Knowing doggone well, inside, it wasn't nothing like the facade you were wearing when you walked out the door.
Yeah, people don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, no.
And you're dying inside, but you look pretty.
Oh, you look real pretty.
And your house is nice. But little by little. So, Ma, you say all of that, right? To segue, you say all of that, right?
Yes.
To now living the life that you're living today. And I tell you this every time I see you. If I could just have a little slither of where you're at and what you're doing, if I could just take just a tiny bite, because to me, I feel like you are living the life. You've created the life and you're living the life now that most people are trying to get to currently and every day. You literally do what you want, how you want, when you want, for however long you would like. And I love that for you, being that you've spent so much of your life, like you said, doing what others kind of forced you into or pushed you into. And now you get to choose that you're going to eat oranges today for the next month. And then at the end of the month, you're like, I don't like these oranges. I'm going to start eating kiwi and just start all over again. I love that for you. And I don't know, speak to that, because I think for a lot of maybe the older listeners, I believe that you're a prime example that there's no limit on, there's no age limit on picking and choosing yourself. Like, I met you in the time that you chose yourself. And from then until now, Twyla Stubblefield is a different woman, okay? She's a different woman. And I always, marvel at your excellence in that manner, because you've sustained a career, children, and a husband, and you did everything the right way up until your divorce, when you said enough is enough. Because even in that, you handled that all with grace. Because I wouldn't have. I'm just saying, I would not have. But for you, you showed, it was like an example that you can do things and still come out on top. This can happen, you can still come out on top. So if you could just give us a gem or just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, what does life look like?
Yeah.
This is what life looks like. When I was in corporate, because y'all know I came from Louisiana, first time on the East Coast. Also culturally, especially being from the South, you were seen but not heard. Even though, we were kids, that was what was said in the house too. So I was quiet. And I really didn't like to ask a lot of questions. And even that was one of my struggles in work, was like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to figure it out on my own. So I was really quiet. And like the conversation we having now, probably I'd be all right. I'm all right with people that I know, but I can see the growth in me from working on myself after I got out the marriage. I was like, something ain't right with this picture, and I need to figure out how to go forward without not blaming what happened, because it was a learning experience, but I just felt like there was a whole lot that I needed to learn. And also in my story, I say, I didn't know what was wrong until I realized I could do something different. So the other day I got tickled in terms of just me being more open, more vocal, more me being myself. Right now, to China's question, I'll just give y'all two things. Right now, I just became a master gardener a year ago.
That's what I was asking. Are you in the
working to
garden?
become a garden consultant and turning that into a business.
Yes.
So one of the ladies at the
Oh, it's a delay?
Oh shoot, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Huh?
She was excited that you were.
What'd you say?
No, I was asking earlier when you said you went back home, did you have a garden? So you just answered it and I got excited. I think it's a delay.
Oh, oh yeah. I have, yeah, because it's just telling me it was unstable. I have a little garden. I have an urban garden, as they call it. I don't have like, 3-4 acres, but I have an urban garden outside, and I've always loved gardening. So that was one of the things that I picked up. And now I've taken that, became a master gardener. Now working on becoming a coach for this with this young lady named Nicole Berg, but she also teaches you the business aspect of it. And so a couple of weeks ago, one of the ladies in the master gardener thing was saying to me, oh, we have 3 big fundraisers every year. So one of them is the bulb committee that's done in October. And so this lady came up to me and she's like, oh, you'd be a really good chairperson. And I told her, because the other thing I've done in the last years, I've learned to become laser focused on what I want and where I'm going to get where I'm going. So I'm trying my best to not have any distractions. So they came to me and I was like, she says, well, can you let me know by tomorrow? Now the old Twyla would have been like, oh, I need to call Sadie and give her my answer. The new Twyla says, she gonna wait. I'm gonna find out what all this is involved before I say yes. So luckily I had gone to this meeting just to be nosy the prior month. And I had very cautiously raised my hand to look at the previous 3 years in sales and what we had purchased. So I had this notebook, and in it described, somebody had done a really good summary of all the tasks that had to be done for this big sale. So I took my time. I took a week. I went over it. So now the meeting's the next day, and I said, oh, shoot, you need to put this together. And I was still like, yeah, no, because I don't want to be bothered. But I was like, okay, fine. So 10 o'clock that night, I took this summary and put together a whole structure on how I wanted the committee to run. And then I got up at 6 o'clock that morning. We went back over it. And so the meeting was at 9 o'clock. So the president of the thing was looking at me and she's like, well, she's British. We don't have a committee chair. And they all looked at me and I was like, okay. But then I said, this is the new Twyla. I said, well, last night at 10, I decided to go through all the tasks and I put together a structure how I would like to move forward with all the tasks, roles, and responsibilities. And I had typed it all out nice and neat. And I gave it to everybody and, at the meeting. So then Lynn's like, oh, well, go, this is wonderful. You know how white folks are. This is wonderful. But, since you have stepped up and we're so happy, we're elated, go ahead. So, because I had said to myself, nah, they don't want to roll away. I want to, then so be it.
There you go.
But that would have never been my attitude.
The old Twyla.
Several years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now I'm the chairperson of the bulb sale.
I love it.
Look at that. That is so exciting. And staying in food,
so it should be
exciting for me.
Huh?
I said the fact that you're staying in food is exciting. Because are you going to do because I know you said bulbs. Are you doing just like flowers and plants, or are you also doing food?
Oh, we're just doing like amarellas, peonies, tulips, like that. It's that, and we usually the sale. I think we made profit like $20,000 from it.
What?
It's a big sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to say something because we haven't touched on the fact. You've mentioned a few times when you talk about your story, but we haven't touched on the fact that you participated in writing a book. Okay.
Oh yeah, I did.
I'm not going to get off of here without touching on that.
So when I went to the retreat, because I'm trying to figure out who Twyla is, right? I ended up working with a good friend of mine, Denise, who's self-published. She self-publishes people's books and helps them write their books, along with I think there was 18 of us who all went to this all Black female retreat with Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you guys know her. Look her up. She's the bomb.
Yeah.
And so
Name drop.
and so we all had a chance to write our stories, and it's called Becoming Dynamic. Oh wait, I can't do it this way.
What?
Right there. Becoming dynamic.
And then we're all on the back page of the book. So yes, I am an Amazon. Denise used to tell me, Twyla, you're an Amazon, what they call it, bestseller person. Yes, I'm Amazon bestseller. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was
So tell us, because you weren't going to speak on it. I don't know if you were going to speak on it unless we got it out of you, but I wasn't going to let you get off of here without saying it. What walk us through that journey? Like, you just did your piece of the book and you shared your story, and then it all got combined together. How was the collaboration on that? I mean,
so we
triggering all
first time author, and the thing that
I was trying to
help me go ahead.
I want to get out the words, like all the emotions you went through while you was writing that.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, because that's usually me, I'm like, oh no, that's all right, I won't do it. And Denise was like, Twyla, you can do it. And I came up, I said it was money. She's like, you can pay me $20 a month. Okay, I don't have that excuse no more. So so I started, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table for hours, y'all, hours. I'm like, and I had, there was this other lady by my age, Dr. Sue, who's very good at writing. So I end up, and she offered to help a lot of us. But when we first got on the phone, and our backgrounds are very similar, same age group in our 60s. All the stuff I told y'all before, all was the same. You know, we had to excel and all this whole thing. I think she's a PhD. So she helped me because, girl, they said just write. And this is how they got me. Oh, you can just write it, and what do you call them people?
The editors. The editor.
Yes, the editor will make it pretty. I was like, okay, bet. Well,
Right.
when Dr. Sue looked at it, she was like, she was sweet. And that, I didn't take offense. She's like, Twyla, you got two stories. One was talking about growing up in the South and segregation, which is another whole conversation in itself.
Oh.
And the other one was talking about your marriage and you becoming aware and you becoming awake. So you need to tease them through. So I said another, I don't know, felt like for hours. Anyway, eventually, I got it on paper. And I think that was the first time that I was able actually to articulate my story from, say, college to retirement, and owning it and acknowledging it. And one of the big things that came out of it was, and I'm a big proponent of this now, is I did it because it was a check off. I had no clue. Y'all hear me when I say I had no clue what that meant, to be married to a man, to have children, and to raise children. And yes, you know, our elders would say to us, oh, you just figure it out. Yeah, but you figure it out and you're miserable at the same time. And I never forget when Alyssa was born, because you know that was my fourth check.
Yeah.
They brought her to me in the hospital. My mom was there, and I looked at her, I was like, so what am I supposed to do with this? Because my family was, you know, some families have a lot of babies, a lot of kids, they all over. Yes. The first time I probably held a baby was when I held Alyssa. So I had no clue of what to do. And of course, mom was there. She came up and was with me 2 or 3 weeks. But other than that, it was check, check, check. So now I say to young ladies, it's good to be in love, but make sure you understand and you ask questions. And I have this book, one of my favorite books is called, I think it's called Intellectual Foreplay. That
Yeah.
I love to give the young ladies to say,
I-
sweetie, go read chapter 3. And when you go out with him, you ask these questions. And you can find out right away, yes or no, but you also need to know who you are and what you want,
That
or
part.
have some sense of what you want. And if they don't if they don't have what you want, don't settle.
Let me
So,
write down the name of this book.
Girl, I got the copy. You know, she gave me a
I
copy.
gave it to her.
And it sit on my nightstand, and I be reading it. And I've used that book in my dating life. And they do have lists of questions. I take a snap of the picture, or before I go out on a date or I meet somebody, I say to myself, I'm good. I put it in my phone. I type them out in my phone, and I'm gonna ask them these 3 questions tonight. Or depending
Yes,
on
ma'am.
which way the conversation goes, I'm gonna ask these 2. It's an amazing book. I'm gonna put the link in the episode notes along
Yes.
with Twyla's book. I'm gonna put that link also in the episode notes, and we're gonna have to bring you back because I do want to talk about checking boxes. That right there, that's a
Yeah.
whole nother topic about checking boxes and not understanding what you're even checking, because like you said, you're doing it because society says, because your parents say, or because that's, you don't have any clue and you're like, it seems okay, you know. I want to have a whole nother conversation on that, because I think a lot of us, maybe each one of us on this call besides you, have done that in some capacity or not. You know what I mean? So that's
Don't
a
get me
whole
started.
conversation.
Because when it came to high school, you know how you'll see some people all excited and they gonna hang out and they just like super elated. I'm looking at them like, I don't know why y'all excited. 2 months from now, I'm going to college.
Yeah.
But because it was laid out, what went next?
Whether you wanted to or not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ma, this was a beautiful conversation. I'm
It
so
really
glad that
Wait, I know we have to wrap up.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Before you get all sweet and mushy, I have to ask a question that I know the foodies are going to want to know. Did you get free food, and how much and how often?
Oh, that is a great question.
Well, of course, because I ate it all day, depending on what group I was in. But we had a store right next to the cafeteria that all the products that we sold, you could go in and buy them at a discount. Yes.
So do you still have access to that store?
No, because
It was not included in the retirement package. It was not
right. They you know, all of the research group maybe 4 after I retired, they moved them to Chicago because that was one of the last things they did. They were considering moving all the researchers to Chicago, and they asked me would I want to go. And yeah, I went because I got a free weekend and I got to stay in a hotel. But I wasn't packing up my family to go way out there for them to tell me 2 years later, because they looked down upon us the older we got.
Mm,
I was like, thanks, but no thanks.
Of course.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used this word earlier, ageism, right? Is that
Ageism. Yeah.
Oh, that's a real word now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Ageism is a thing. It is a thing. And it's discrimination at the highest level. So it wasn't a thing before, but it's definitely a thing now. And, you know, unfortunately, back in the day, the older you got pushed out. Today, you can stand up for yourself. As long as you're old enough to do the job. I was actually just watching a clip on Instagram, and this woman, she's a park ranger somewhere here in the United States, and she retired at 99 or 100 and something years old. Like, can you imagine still working? She was beautiful. She looked like she was 70 something, but she worked into her hundreds as a park ranger.
I love that.
That's because she loved it. That's why.
And
And it wasn't a job.
It wasn't a job. So, oh my goodness. Ma, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence, with your story.
I hope I was a blessing to somebody.
No, listen, if you was only a blessing to us, then you did your job. But I know that the people in the community are going to fall over with the gems that you dropped, with your experiences, and the fact that they were just, now they could say they know a scientist. How about that?
And I have a nephew who wants to go into food science, and a daughter well, both of my daughters are great in science, but my baby girl, I'm going to make sure she watches this so she can see how cool science and how relatable it is outside of the periodic table, which scares us all, you know. So,
what to tell her if she wants to talk to me, she can call me.
I sure will. And I got a baby that's fighting through chemistry right now, so we might be calling you tonight.
And I have to say,
that's been so long ago. I don't know if I can help her with all that, but yeah.
I'm going to say this as I roll out. She's also an amazing scientist in her own kitchen.
Say it again.
Here?
Well, I'm always hungry, so
I'm talking about you.
Oh,
yes, because I did taste your food.
Damn.
Yeah.
Because when Mom make that pulled pork, and she make that sweet potato souffle.
Yeah.
What?
She make them cheese grits with the shrimps and the cheese grits and
y'all know I'll be hungry all the time.
Wait, look, when I lived in New York, we all were together always. Everybody was at my house. My house was the house.
Well, look, I know how to get to Louisiana.
Hey,
listen.
Oh, this one right here ain't got here yet. Sheena,
I'm coming, Mom. Because you see
Mm-hmm.
my bad kids trying to be in the video.
I saw.
Oh my God.
we all say,
I told you I'm not doing good. I'm trying to manage the household, the business, and all. It's not working.
Job, Ma. She's doing an amazing
Yes,
job.
it is. When you wake up one day, you'll be like, I did it.
When?
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. I told her, her life is, everybody's life is in seasons. They're in phases. And you're going to get to a point where you're going to look back and be like, damn, I did that.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at the hand. Look at the hand over there.
See the
little
hand.
hand.
Because if he come over here, I can't post this video. So he needs to go back in his room.
Ooh, don't mess up this little hand. But Sheena, you were about to give a beautiful send off before I interrupted you with my food question, which was extremely important.
It was important, and I'm glad that you asked it, because if that was the case, we would have to make a trip to New York, Ma, so I could stop.
The place not even there anymore, so you can't even get it.
I go.
But like I was saying before, I'm so thankful that we were able to introduce you to the world, give you your flowers, Ma. You are the epitome of a boss. So if nobody has ever told you, we at Resilient Brown Mamas are telling you, you are the boss we all want to be.
And you will be. Just keep moving. That's all.
We will, Ma. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Take us out.
All right. Well, that was amazing. I'm going to be thinking about this all night. Thank you so much for listening. Please check us out on wherever you listen to your podcast, all platforms, Resilient Brown Mamas. Make sure you join our Facebook group so we can chit chat and you can share how resilient you are from time to time. Y'all need to get active in there. But we will be posting, we're going to say Wednesday, but just look out for it. Okay. We got lives. We busy.